why are we doing this survey? The gold industry in India is a fairly large industry. The jewelry is 250,000 crores worth of industry, imports of $35 billion, exports of $9 billion of jewelry, employs more than 6 lakh people. However, if you look for the way the industry functions, you'll find that it's fairly fragmented, and decision making is based on fragmented data, based on the interests of different parts of the industry rather than what works for the industry as a whole. And part of the reason for that is that there is no real kosher data that exists at the level of the industry about how people actually buy and consume gold. So the purpose of the survey essentially is to be able to gather data from people who are actually consuming gold across the country, so that that can lead to better decision making by all concerned, whether it is dwellers, whether it is manufacturers, whether it is refiners, whether it is nominated agencies, whether it is banks, Reserve Bank of India, and the government as well for policy making purposes insofar as it is related to gold. Mm-hmm. And this will be the first survey of its kind in India, because we have not conducted a national survey that is specific to gold in the country. There was a survey conducted by the Household Finance Committee led by Tarun Ramadurai in 2016, where they were trying to estimate how households actually do their savings. And part of that survey kind of led to the finding that of all the savings that households in the country do, around 75% is real estate based, and around 9 to 11% is based on gold, and the rest of it is other stuff like financial products and others.
Okay.
So gold also forms a reasonably large chunk of the savings or the assets of people in this country. We are taking the initiative to do this survey across the country from a panel of around 200,000 households. And it will be a biannual event where we will collect data twice in a year, 20,000 households each, so 40,000 households annually. And we are contracting, we have associating with a body called IC 360, which is also into doing surveys. Sometimes they do it on their own account. Here they are collaborating with us. We are trying to understand not assets per se, but we are trying to understand the purchase, consumption, use, attitude, almost literally anything that you can think of in relation to gold, right? So we want to understand what is the age of the person who buys gold, what is the marital status of the person who buys gold, what is his principal occupation pre-COVID and post-COVID. We want to understand whether this gentleman is educated at what level, up to 4th standard, or has a professional degree, or is illiterate. We want to understand what is the number of people in his household, how many are earning members. We want to understand whether there are children less than 15 years old in the household that is buying gold. We want to understand whether the wages that are being used to buy gold are public sector or private sector. It's one of the reasons that why we are being extremely careful in how the data is being collected, and we are making sure that the people who are going to be collecting the data are actually well trained and are not doing data collection for the first time. So for example, if you are going into rural India and you are trying to collect data, people will not open up to you as an interviewer if they don't already know you. So the people who will go out and collect the data are not first-time interviewers who are going there and knocking on doors of people that they have no prior experience of and then trying to get this kind of information. These are people who have been collecting data in the past and who collected some sensitive data. These are some of the same people who collected the data for the Tarun Ramadurai report. These are the same people who collected the data for the report on by price on which used to collect data for the National Council for Economic Research, Applied Economic Research, NCAER, So these are actually very, very skilled people who are able to collect data. They've been doing it for a while. There will be a sequence to it. However, the ultimate goal is not necessarily to collect data only from some states in one round and some states in the other round. The goal is to have a representative sample by consumption. So, for example, the south of the country consumes 40% of the gold. And in the south, Kerala and Tamil Nadu consume more gold than Karnataka, Telangana, and Andhra Pradesh. So the number of households that we will collect data from in Kerala and Tamil Nadu will be somewhat higher than in the other three states in the south. And in the south, the number of data points that we will collect will be a little bit more, will be proportionately more than what we will collect in, let's say, the northern states of Bihar, Orissa, West Bengal, Uttar Pradesh, and so on. So that the data that is collected from households represents the pattern of consumption, the pattern of purchase across the country in terms of volume and value. We also want to look at stuff like Gold Monetization Scheme. So has the person heard of the Gold Monetization Scheme? Have they invested in it? Why not? One of the things, for example, that we know is that the Gold Monetization Scheme has actually been an abysmal failure. In 5 years, it has collected only around 22, 24 tons. So hopefully at the end of this whole process, we are able to understand why has the GMS failed, especially from the perspective of the customer.